All right. Did you already know, let's say as a 12-year-old boy, that you would become a photographer?
Yes, I know it sounds horribly cliche, and it
Yeah.
is, but like many other photographers, especially ones of my generation, when I was exactly that, 12, I would say, family friend of the family set up a small dark room in the attic of my parents' house in Florence, and when I saw for the first time an image appearing in the developer,
Yeah.
I had no doubt.
Wow.
It was really like, and I know a lot of photographers have said this, so it's I'm almost embarrassed to say this because it's so cliche, but that appearing of
Awakening.
of an image was just very strong. And I never had a period in my life that said, what should I do when I'm adult? Never questioned. From when I was 12, it was clear that photography would not be my work, but it would be what I did. So I worked in everything photography. I've been working in fashion, I've been working in labs, I've been working in commercial work, I've been doing basically my projects, but I've, as a curator, as an editor, as a, I'm interested in the whole global system
Yeah.
of what we call photography.
Yeah.
But
And were you supported by your parents, or like, were they also involved in the cultural or a sort of an art scene in Florence?
No, I come from a completely different world. My father was a missionary,
Oh,
and so I come from a very religious family.
really?
And my mother was a housewife, but we lived in an open house, so she had a lot of foster children, runaway people coming out of jail, prostitutes, complicated junkies, things like that. So those open house was raised. So no, they didn't see photography as, but they never opposed it. It was, we were very free, each one of us to choose what we did. I would say that, and again, this is very cliche, I'm embarrassed, but probably my biggest influence, yes, was my mother, because my mother kept photo albums. She made photo albums for the family. But being Dutch and having the Dutch sense of humor, what she did...
do they have humor?
They do. A very Dutch one, not everybody gets it, but what she did was, a photo album is the celebration of everything perfect in a family. The horrors of a family don't make it usually to a photo album. You have, births, but you don't have deaths in photo albums. You have marriages, but you don't have divorces. Divorces are rarely photographed. You have the joy of a teenage kid, but if the teenage kid then becomes a junkie, that doesn't make it to the photo album. You always have happy, nice, smiley photographs.
And to go to the dark side.
Right, but it is also like, why is reality so amazing?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not one level of that beautiful Kodak instant, Kodak moment, that everything looks perfect around you. So my mother made these albums, and she enjoyed very much doing photographs of the embarrassing moments, the fun moments also, but also things that would you not normally glorify. And she wrote texts, and I think
really?
when my obsession with working between text and image, which is really something that defines my practice, came from there, because the texts were funny, hilarious, dramatic, poetic, and for each, we're three brothers, for each one of us, she made one album. She also made loads of family albums. We have a couple for each year for the first 20 years of my life, but then she made one for each with long texts, which again are not at all glorifying.
Yeah.
There are harsh criticisms like just the Dutch are able to do. and be super direct. It's amazing, and this directness, this not trying to sweeten things and making them beautiful, is something I think I was very influenced by.
Yeah, and that we find back in your work, that directness, that harshness.
I think so. I mean, I think I don't know if harshness is the word, but I would say a certain kind of honesty.
Yeah.
And a certain kind of directness, I guess.
And being raised in an open house like that is kind of special, I think. And we are here in Arles, in a house, and when I came inside, you said, yeah, well, we have, it's a bit of, I don't know if that were your exact words, but you said it's a bit of an open house right now. So I guess it's also in your DNA just to collaborate, to partner up, to find people to work with or to be with. Because the second sentence was, yeah, we will have a party in 2 days. Yeah, I mean, you party with people.
Oh, it's very difficult to party on your own.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, yes, I how can I say this? I like to work with others very much. I don't think I have the exclusivity of what should be said or what I can say. I don't think I'm an extraordinary person. I think that you do good things when you work with others. And it's very complicated. It's much easier to work by yourself. It's much easier to work only on yourself, promoting yourself and your brand. But I've not been interested in that in my career very much, and I've always liked collaboration. At times I joke, I say that's you know, I'm a photographer, but what I really wanted to be was a rock star, and my dream was to play in a band. You know, so I've recreated a bit the band vibe in photography world. So whether it's with Riverboom, so the collective we had, because Riverboom committed assisted suicide a couple of years ago, and or it is with the books, working with Serge Michel or Arnaud Robert or Gabriele Galimberti or lots of other people. Have always liked to try to how can I say, take, what's the right word, to put together different energies and see what these energies could produce.
How was it when you were director of Cortona to put all the energies of your colleagues, of the photographers together? Because, well, when we talk in stereotypes, a photographer is working on its own, is like an Einzelgänger, is doesn't collaborate in general that often. So how was it to put all these energies together?
Well, it's, you know, photographers are complicated. They have generally inflated egos. You know something about that. Yeah. But I approached them not as a curator, but as a photographer. Mm-hmm. I'm a photographer as well, and I love what you do, and I really would like to show what you're doing, because I think it's important. And so I think that amazing relationships have been created for me, and I'm so lucky for this. In the 4 years I was director of Cortona, because I worked with some of my heroes. I worked with colleagues, other curators. I worked with a team in Cortona, which is the team that then co-curated the last edition with me, which is a collective in Italy called Kubla Clan, much younger than me, and their energy was crucial for the success of Cortona. So I always also feel I need to credit the others for what it did. So even if Kubla Clan were not in the curation part of the festival officially when I arrived there, I immediately felt they should be, because their suggestions, their work, their energy became fundamental for the vision I had for Cortona, and we worked together for 4 years in a beautiful way. And the same with photographers. Obviously, some photographers are complete assholes, and you never want to see them again. But that's rare. I think that I was blessed with the possibility of meeting amazing artists and amazing people, and working on projects that have touched on many different levels, many people.
You met some of your heroes. Did you have heroes when you were that 12-year-old kid in the dark room? Did you already admire some photographers, or was that a world not known by you yet?
I'm completely self-educated. It's not something I brag about. I would have loved to do photography school. I've often taught in schools and always thought, how lucky somebody is that does a photography school. I didn't have that chance. I very quickly left my parents' house and had to maintain myself. So I started working immediately.
As what? Working as what?
Oh, I did all kinds of odd jobs at the starting, and then very quickly it was in photography. I worked as a technician in a Kodak lab in London, and my work was to put stickers on the photographs. It was a 1-hour lab that had a little suggestions of how you should improve your photography skills. Don't put your finger in front of the lens, or clean your lens, or don't use a flash in a mirror, kind of things. I thought that those photographs were the best, whether it was the finger, the flash in the mirror, and all that. But I was paid to put the stickers on it, and then I worked a lot in the technical side. I then ran a lab, which then I transformed into a gallery as well, but at the time was the only photography gallery in Florence. But the main, the bread and butter was printing photographs. So I spent almost 10 years of my life in a darkroom.
Wow.
And I, at the time, was doing my own projects on the side.
Yeah.
But what paid the rent was printing other people's photographs. So I've seen a lot of photographs of others, and yeah.
But how do you get from that lab to working with these amazing outlets like New York Times, Le Monde, The Guardian? How did you get there? What was your path?
I should reconstruct a bit that. I think the path was that once I transformed the first room of the lab, which is in the center of Florence, in a gallery. And I started showing works of people I liked. This I was in my early 20s. And then that brought the city of Florence to ask me to organize some exhibitions in some spaces they had in Florence. And through that, I met bigger photographers, people that had a more established career, which I was allowed to propose and show in these spaces, different spaces around the city of Florence. And through that I met some incredible workers, photographers, and that brought me to learn a lot of other things, and then travel with them and show them my work, have a feedback. And very quickly, I would say, festivals were also, and that's why we were speaking about Arles before, but I know about Cortona, and festivals are an amazing moment where you meet people in flesh, you spend time with them, you sweat under the sun with them, you see exhibitions, you comment, you interact, and also you have all the other side, which are the people that give work, which at the time was photo editors, magazines, gallerists, curators, you name it. and slowly things started to produce. But I mentioned before having met Serge Michel. Serge Michel is a Swiss journalist, and when I met him, I met him in Tehran, in Iran, 1999. That's a long time ago, and that was crucial for me because he opened a whole different Pandora box, which was journalism, which was the journalistic approach, the research, the knowledge, and so it was not anymore about my incredible vision. I'm going to walk down the streets of Tehran and do some images which are embedded with my vision of the world. No, it's not that. It was learn the thing, learn about the history, learn the language, meet the people, ask the questions, and build onto that.
Yeah.
And I was educated through that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, talking about photojournalism, a few weeks ago I had Kira Polak on the podcast, and well, she's former chief of photography of Time Magazine, New York Times, other outlets. She's this year's jury chair of World Press Photo, and she talked about how difficult photojournalism is these days. On the one hand, because of the rise of AI, on the other hand, because of the business model behind it that has completely changed, not to say collapsed. What is your view on that? Because, well, you worked in photojournalism for a long time, you still do.
I don't define myself as a photojournalist anymore.
No.
Specifically because the photojournalist model was based on press, and today you don't live out of that. I mean, some people do, but it's a minority.
Yeah.
We were speaking about festivals before. The festival of Perpignan at the time was really for me an incredible place where I met my first agent. I met lots of incredible photographers. I learned lots of things.
With Visa pour l'image.
Visa pour l'image, exactly. I have moved very far. Well, I've moved away from that kind of approach photographically. I think it needs to be renewed, but I believe it is regularly renewed. Mm-hmm. What do I think? Yes, the photojournalism is in an immense crisis, no doubt about it. Is photography in an immense crisis? Not necessarily. I think photography still has a lot to say, and I'll give you one example. You said two of the biggest threats to, let's call it documentary photography, to widen the spectrum. Two of the biggest threats to that is the crumbling of an economic model and the arrival of very sophisticated AI, which produces images that you basically cannot recognize as machine produced. There's another threat. The third threat is access. And last year in Cortona, one of the exhibitions I produced was an exhibition by an Italian photojournalist called Federico Vespignani. And Federico wanted to document what was happening in Gaza. So, like all the journalists, he was not allowed into Gaza to document the genocide, and he was forced to stay at home. And what Federico did, he started thinking, researching, working, and eventually he came across thousands of profiles of Israeli IDF soldiers in Gaza used on Tinder, where they would use an image of them in full military outfit with the crumbled buildings behind them, with the guns and with sentences, I like watching films on Netflix, I love kittens, and I want to have kids. And behind them was unbelievable scenario of, and the image was like of this man, testosteronic man, you know. These images were made and put on Instagram because they thought they did attract women.
Yeah.
That work brought out of context, so out of the context of somebody scrolling on Tinder, and put in an exhibition, is what we did with Federico, and in a book which he produced, is mind-blowing. It's, you know, there's been a lot of incredible photographs coming out from Gaza from Palestinian photographers, which have endured the extreme difficulty of working in places like that, and been killed, targeted for being journalist photographers. Some of the images are unbearable. You barely can look at them. And, you know, we can go on about, you know, the fatigue of seeing the same image of an 8-year-old girl under the rubble, you know. And I still think those images are important, and I think the work the Palestinian photographers have done is amazing in the midst of the most difficult situation in the world. But when I saw the work of Federico, I was mind blown, saying, okay, this is exactly what photography can do. A photograph, says a different thing if you put it in a different context. That image was made to have a hookup, and you see it, and it's not only the proof of a war crime, but so proof also that war is damaging, not only for who wages it, not for only who is attacked, but also of who wages it. The corruption of the mentality of a young man, you know, that just wants to find a partner and stands in Gaza. It all comes apparent in that image, and it's an image that they took themselves, or their bodies in the army, and that project for me was, like many others I've shown in Cortona or that I've worked with, it was such a strong example of what photography can still do if we work hard, if we research, if we think, if we imagine.
Because you call it a threat, not having access, but in this example is not having access, the opportunity to give a different context.
Well, you work with limits.
Yeah.
The limits define you. If you have no limits, you know, it's not going to be interesting. So the fact that Federico couldn't go there, if he went there, he probably would have, you know, if he was allowed to go to Gaza, which no photographer from the world was allowed. Nobody went in. I mean, we still have not really wrapped our head around this idea that there is a war, a genocide going on, and nobody is allowed to go and document it. Only the photographers and journalists which are there, and they're targeted directly. That's already one first thing. The second thing is, yes, there is a limit, and if he went there, he probably would have taken quite classic, for as much as he is a very good photographer, quite classic photojournalistic images. The fact that he was not allowed to pushed him to look at things differently and think of things differently, and for me to produce a work which is more telling than a lot of the classic photojournalistic images.
So that's why you're saying the medium of photography is not really in a crisis, because it needs its limits to shine.
Right, and I think that every innovation will bring changes. I don't want to pronounce myself around AI. I don't know what's going to do. I'm definitely scared. I'm definitely worried. But I'm incapable of making any kind of foreseeing what our future will be in that. But I still think that, yes, I believe very deeply that photography has still a lot to say and has still an incredible power. And I see it happening regularly in different works. Usually, or not usually, often, it's not necessarily a photographer that takes a photograph, which is interesting. It's the usage of photography that is interesting. How a photograph. I mean, think
like
of the
Federico did.
that Federico did, but think of the Iraq War. You know, what's the image which represents the Iraq War best to you? It's the image of the prisoner, you know, with his arms open with a thin cap. An American soldier took that image.
Yeah.
You know, and it's the defining image. Even if we were, you know, I was there, I was working there, and we were working with, you know, speaking of Kira Polak, I was working for Kira at the time, and we're all striving to take the defining image of the war in Iraq. But that image, you know, blew it out of the house. It's a much stronger image than any of us could have taken. So yes, I believe in the power of photography, and I still think it's relevant in a world where, you know, we consume photography more and more. What is it? 5 billion photographs taken each day. How can you say photography is dead? A certain kind of photography is definitely dead, and it probably deserves to be dead.
And also a certain kind of photographer, image maker is dead or will disappear in the coming years.
Absolutely, which is organic. I think we have to. I'm not like, oh, it's so beautiful, happy. I think that the death of the economic model, which, you know, sustained me and so many others for so many years, and the idea of the press is fundamental. I'm scared about the demise of the press, and that's one of the reasons I did work with the Festival of Cortona, because I did believe that photography needs places to be shown, to be produced. Today, if you are a 20-year-old and you want to become a documentary photographer, you know, it's a good thing if your parents are rich, because if they're not, you're gonna struggle, and which, you know, defines also who's going to be taking the photographs, the documentary photographs. If it's just,
and also it gives maybe other opportunities financially as well.
Absolutely.
Speaking about your work, more recently you produced or you finished the project Happy Pills, which is a 5-year project on the pharmaceutical industry, which grew into a book, a turning exhibition, and also your first film. The project is still touring, but could you tell us a bit more about it?
So again, it's a project.
And we have the book in front of us.
We have the book in front of us. You can hear the sound of the plastic
opening.
opening.
That's the first time we do this.
Oops, that's always a very exciting sound, no? And when you open a book. So again, this is a project I did not do on my own. I did it with a Swiss writer, author called Arles, who I've been working for 10 years. We did different projects together, including the book on Haiti. Happy Pills comes from a philosophical question. What is happiness? And how is happiness a marketable asset? And it definitely is in our society today. And I had worked with Gabriele Galimberti on a long project on what tax havens are. So tax havens are underpinning our capitalist system. They're not an exception, they're at the heart of it. And so it's an industry. It's an industry which we don't know much about, but exists. So I have investigated and worked on this industry for different years with Gabriele, and then with Arnaud, I felt I wanted to go into another industry, which for me was fascinating, which is the pharmaceutical industry. And the pharmaceutical industry doesn't sell us anymore the fact of healing, but it sells us the idea of healing from ourselves, so of happiness. The marketing of the pharmaceutical industry is not centered on the medical element. It's centered on transforming you and the miracle. And so it started from that. So it started as an investigation specifically on the pharmaceutical industry, and then it became something broader about our relationship to happiness. What do we look for, and how do we imagine we can obtain happiness? And increasingly, it's something we delegate to pills.
Pills, yeah.
If before it was, philosophy, religion, even politics, now happiness is more something in the area of the pharmaceutical.
And you can find it in all layers of society.
In all layers of society, all over the world. We worked in Niger, we worked in Peru, we worked in Switzerland, we worked in the States, in India. The idea was that in each of these places we would put three things together: one medication, one consumer, and one place. And how these three worked together in medicines and pills that we felt represent something of our society today. The idea of obtaining something we should not, we normally are out of our reach.
And what did you find?
Well, we found that there's an American expression is there's a pill for that, which means that every situation you might find there is a chemical remedy. And yes, I think that this idea that we can control everything and that we can obtain everything, including happiness, is the mirage. You say the
mirror, no?
No, the mirage is the Fata Morgana, it's gonna come to me.
You don't mean the miracle. No.
It's the promise of the miracle, absolutely. It's the pharmaceutical industry promises a miracle, and we want to believe in this miracle. So whether it is to become strong, whether it's not to age, whether it's always to be, performing sexually, whether it is to control your body, it's not about healing anymore. It's about control.
Yeah. And what about you?
I'm exactly like that.
Yeah.
And I think that was very interesting because along the way, some of the cases some of the people we photographed are pretty extreme, but actually they're just like us.
You just want to be happy.
Everybody wants, and we do have in ourselves that mentality. So if tomorrow they offered me a pill that would not make me age, I probably would take it. They offer you now a pill that makes you lose weight. Really just makes you lose weight. It's unbelievable. Something 20 years ago was just unimaginable. We are getting with a speed incredible to obtain things from our bodies and from our minds that were just unimaginable. Think Viagra. I mean, there Ozempic, yeah, for weight, but I mean, if you go in remedies for impotence are found in Pharaoh's tombs, from 5,000 years ago. We've always been obsessed with obtaining something more, and before it was maybe the magician that promised us, the priest, or whatever, and today it's the pharmaceutical industry, but they're a lot more performing than a priest or a witch doctor.
Now I have to think about that your father being raised by a missionary is also like a bit, someone who is promising something.
Definitely, religion does. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Maybe that's why I'm not a believer, and I moved very far away from that. But the promise of eternal life, of a miracle, of control, of praying to a God and saying, make this happen, is something which is deep in our psyche, and today it's in many ways a lot more realizable. It can happen a lot more than what had happened before, so that there's something.
Yeah, but that's the scientific part. You also have like the more metaphysical or more like the manifestation part, the energy part that says even with placebos, when you think it, you can have it. Yeah. So that's also really interesting, right?
Yeah. I think it's important. I think we strive. There's nothing wrong with that. But we're really very much like Icarus, that tries to fly towards the sun.
To the sun, yeah.
So we'll see when our wings melt.
And are you a bit like that? Like you fly to the sun and you will see where you get burned, or you're more risk averse?
I'm more risky to get burned.
Yeah, really. Maybe that's
and I've gotten burned.
Oh, okay, yeah. But I mean, in your biggest crisis, you have your biggest breakthroughs, right?
Yeah, it's complicated to be like that, because that somehow would justify having dared to go a bit too close to the sun, which I don't think necessarily is always a good thing. No,
that's true. Yeah. But most of the time you do that unconsciously.
I would say differently. I would say that through suffering, you acquire knowledge. It's difficult to learn certain things without going through pain.
Yeah.
And so certain kind of lessons are unfortunately learned the hard way.
Is that also how you approach a project like this? Like, okay, let's see how far we can go?
I would say you definitely have to test the limits, yes. Yeah. And limits are a very important thing. I think that without limits, things are uninteresting, and so working around the limits is something I think is crucial in my approach.
And
which are the limits? Which can be even limits of the language.
Of course,
can be limits. With on completely different level. With Riverboom, we tested the limits of the photographic language, but I think we can test the limits of what can be photographed. When I worked on the tax havens, the first places we went was to Gabriele, to the Cayman Islands. There was nothing to photograph, and we were desperate, and so you have to test the limit of representation. We knew that there was enormous things going on, which really our economy depends on. We depend on, but translating that in images was an enormous challenge. And if you don't have these limits, you don't test yourself.
How do these limits define the finished project? What do we see in the book, in the exhibition, in the film? What do you give the viewer?
Well, I guess you should answer the question for me, depending what you see. I think everybody.
On a very practical level, what's the project about? What do you see?
You mean in tax havens? In
Happy Pills.
In Happy Pills. Well, you see 8 different stories that each one deals with a specific person and his or her consumption, and that each one are an element of our desire to escape our limits. Go back to limits again. And what I tried to do is that in each case I tried to find a particular photographic language for each subject. So in one case it was more documentary, in one case it was more portrait, in one case it was more symbolic, metaphoric. In the case of Luis is one of the one of the people we photographed.
Mm-hmm.
Luis had an incurable cancer. He was a French man, writer, and he decided to go and die of assisted suicide in Switzerland. So he took the last pill.
Mm-hmm.
And we followed Luis in a road trip from the south of Portugal, where he lived, all the way to Switzerland, where he died. And I decided to photograph that, and this reconnects to what we were talking before. I decided to photograph that like it was photographs for a photo album. It was the last chapter of the photo album in the style that my mother would have made it. So photos of Luis and his wife walking along the beach with the sunset. I had them eating in a restaurant. I had them driving a car, till the last photo of Luis on the bed taking the fatal dose.
Yeah. Is this show touring right now?
It just was in Switzerland for the second time at the Lenzburg Photo Festival.
Yeah.
It just came, the crates just came back home to me now.
Yeah. How do you get such very large projects funded?
It's something you learn along the way, because I did get these projects funded in the past through media, through press. And then slowly that started eroding, and so you look for different models. I would say it's really a Swiss knife. It's lots of things together. It's not one thing.
No.
So it's
and it takes time.
It takes a lot of time, and my projects are not sexy. They're not easy projects. They're not so it's complicated, and the final result are photographs which not necessarily are kind of photographs you hang over your couch. Some are maybe, some do eventually get sold, but that's part. So yes, it's a mixture of collectors, grants, working with institutions, working with publishers. And so it's a little bit of everything that put together, and that's also unfortunately why the projects take a very long time, because
and you're all doing this by yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or with the person I'm doing the project.
Yeah. And in the beginning you said, researching is very important and it takes a lot of time. Is that also why, or do you need to pre-finance the project? Because it,
Exactly, yes.
Yeah. Okay. To wrap up, Paolo, I was wondering, let's say we'll meet again in 5 years here in Les Rencontres. That will be 2031. What would you dearly have achieved by then, professionally, privately? What is that dot on the horizon?
Well, I have a new project I'm working on, which is very dear to my heart. It's the most personal project I've ever done, and it's the first project I'm doing on my own.
Oh, no collaboration?
Not on this one.
Wow.
It's a big turning point for me.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe if we meet again in 5 years, that project will exist, hopefully. And for me, it's...
and it's a secret still?
I'm not speaking about it yet, just yet.
Yeah.
It's a thing I'm working on, and as soon as I can share something, I'll be happy to. But It's something that has obsessed me for a long time, going back to the word obsession. And it's also something which I've, how can I say, I've been very skeptical and staying far away on personal projects.
Why?
Because I think I was, I mean, all my projects are extremely personal because they become things that are extremely dear to me, important to me. But I've been brought up in a journalistic way. You're not talking about yourself. You obviously you're talking about yourself because whatever you do, you talk somehow yourself. But you are not the center. You are not the story. The story is what is in front of you. You have to respect the story. And I ascribe to that very much. But in this case, I'm making an exception on that.
Why is that? Why now?
Because there's been some radical changes in my life. And I think I have to acknowledge them.
Yeah. Okay. Now we have to meet. But I do hope we meet. Yeah.
Sooner than
yeah. Thank you so much for this inspiring talk here in the heat of Arles.
Thank you.
And for sharing your knowledge around the medium of photography. Thank you also, listener, for your fine